Eala dazzles in DC. The Filipino star shows exactly why she's a superstar.
There is a scoreboard in Washington tonight that does not make sense. And if you had walked into that stadium at the exact wrong moment, you would have sworn you were watching the end of a dream instead of the beginning of one. A break at love. A set already gone. A crowd of thousands holding a breath they didn't know they were holding. And somewhere on that court, a young woman named Alex was standing 3 points from disappearing completely. What happens in the next 20 minutes will change how people talk about her for the rest of the season. But to understand why, you have to go back to the moment before anyone knew what was coming. Welcome back to Sherry Diaries, where tonight we are unpacking one of the most quietly terrifying comebacks of the year. A match that looked over long before it actually was. It starts, like most disasters and most miracles, with excitement nobody could contain. Weeks before Alex ever touched a racket in Washington, the tournament's own chairman admitted something strange. Almost every single ticket inquiry that came through in the month leading up to the event was about one name. Not the top seed, not the defending champion, Alex. People weren't buying tickets to watch a tournament. They were buying tickets to watch her. And when a crowd shows up for a person instead of a sport, the pressure in the air changes. It gets heavier. It gets personal. So when Alex finally walked out for her Washington debut, she wasn't just stepping onto a court. She was stepping into an expectation that had been building for weeks, one ticket order at a time. The flags came first. Small ones waved by hand, then bigger ones draped over shoulders. The Filipino community had turned out in force, and for a moment, it didn't even feel like a first-round match. It felt like a homecoming thousands of miles from home. But here's the part almost nobody was talking about before the match began. The part that should have made everyone nervous. Alex's opponent wasn't some unranked wild card designed to give the crowd an easy night. It was Qinwen Zheng, Olympic champion, former world number 4, a player who has made a career out of turning matches into avalanches before her opponents even realize the snow has started moving. This was not a gentle welcome to Washington. This was a trapdoor disguised as a debut. And for a while, it looked like Alex knew exactly what she was doing. She competed. She pushed. She refused to just stand there and admire the power coming at her. But slowly, almost politely, Zheng began finding her rhythm. Point by point, the momentum leaned her way. The set slipped to 5-3. Alex clawed back, made her fight for it, forced a few more nervous swings out of an Olympic champion. But it wasn't enough. 6-4. First set gone. Now here is where most people would tell you the story calms down for a second. It doesn't. Because losing a set to a player like Zheng isn't just a number on a screen. It's a message. It tells you she has the weapons to hurt you again. It tells you that panicking now, trying to force something back too quickly, could turn a difficult night into a humiliating one. So Alex had a choice nobody in the crowd could see her making. Chase the match and risk making everything worse, or stay patient and hope patience would be enough. She chose patience. And for a set and a half, patience looked like it might not be enough at all. The second set crept forward the way tense sets do. Tight service games, nervous rallies, small mistakes that cost enormous amounts. Every point mattered more than the last. And then it happened. The moment that should have ended this story early. 4-3, Zheng serving, and suddenly Alex's own serve completely vanished from under her. Broken, not narrowly. Not after a fight, at love. 4 straight points, gone in what felt like seconds. Think about what that actually meant in real time. Alex was already down a set. Now she was down a break in the second, staring at an opponent one hold away from serving for a match that could bury her debut before it ever really began. The crowd that had come to celebrate her went quiet. In that specific way crowds go quiet when they can feel something bad approaching. This was the moment. This was the exact second where, if you'd frozen the broadcast and asked anyone in that stadium who was going to win, there would have been only one answer. But matches are not decided by the moment that looks the most obvious. They're decided by what happens next. And what happened next is the part of this story that deserves to be slowed down, because it is easy to skip past in the highlights and impossible to understand if you do. Alex didn't explode. She didn't suddenly start swinging like a player with nothing to lose, the way broken competitors so often do in the final moments before a collapse. She did something far less dramatic and far more dangerous for her opponent. She simply stayed. Every ball. Every rally. No panic, no forcing, just presence. Later, she'd admit, almost with a laugh, that her coach had told her exactly this before the set even began. Stay in it. Stay for every single ball. The chances will come. It sounds like such a small piece of advice. It is actually the entire hinge the match turned on. Because Alex wasn't trying to manufacture a miracle in 5 minutes. She was waiting for the door to open just slightly. And the instant it did, she didn't hesitate. She broke back, at love. Sit with that for a second, because the symmetry there is almost unbelievable. Zheng had just taken Alex's serve without giving up a single point. Alex answered by doing the exact same thing right back to her. And in professional tennis, that kind of mirrored response does something to the psychology of a match that box scores can never fully capture. The pressure that had been sitting entirely on Alex's shoulders didn't just ease. It crossed the net. Suddenly, Zheng wasn't the player closing out a rout. She was the player trying to protect a lead that had just evaporated in front of her. And once that shift happens, once an opponent starts protecting instead of attacking, everything about a match changes shape. Alex didn't slow down to admire what she'd just done. She kept pulling. Another game, another hold, another small shift of weight from one side of the net to the other, and then another, and then, almost before anyone in that stadium could process what they were watching, it wasn't one comeback anymore. It was 7 straight games. 7. Not 7 points. 7 entire games, strung together without a single crack, against a woman who had just months earlier stood on an Olympic podium. If you want to understand how thoroughly a match can flip, remember that number, because everything that happened afterward only makes sense once you understand how completely the momentum had reversed. The second set, which had looked catastrophic barely 20 minutes earlier, ended 6-4 in Alex's favor. 1 set all. But if you think the story is just, she won a set, you are missing what actually happened underneath the scoreline. This wasn't a recovery. It was a full inversion. Zheng walked into the deciding set having just watched a 2-break cushion disappear into thin air, and now she had to somehow rebuild belief from scratch, in real time, in front of a crowd that had turned entirely hostile to her chances. And Alex made sure that rebuilding never got the chance to happen. The third set opened, and instead of settling, instead of playing like someone simply relieved to have survived, Alex kept attacking the same rhythm that had just worked. Game, 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 game. For love. Read that again. An Olympic champion, one of the most dangerous servers on tour, down 4 games to nothing in a deciding set, having led this same match by a set and a break less than an hour earlier. If you'd shown that scoreline to someone with no context, they would have assumed a different player was even on the court. For one flickering moment, it looked like Zheng might find something. She broke through, got herself onto the board, and for a breath, the tiniest sliver of doubt crept back into the air. Maybe the comeback had gone too far, too fast. Maybe there was one more twist left in this match. This is usually where nerves creep in for a player who has just spent an hour clawing back from disaster. The fear of watching your own comeback slip away in the final stretch. But Alex didn't let the moment breathe. She answered immediately, took the break straight back, and in doing so delivered a message far louder than any single shot could have. There would be no second twist tonight. 6-1 final set. Match over. 4-6, 6-4, 6-1. Those numbers alone tell you Alex won. They do not tell you how she won, and that is the part worth remembering long after tonight. Because the number that should actually stay with you isn't the 6-1. It's the 7. 7 consecutive games from the brink of collapse to total command. That stretch is the real story. The bridge between a player who looked finished and a player who ended up dominating. There's a small detail buried in the stats that makes this even more fascinating. Zheng finished with 14 aces. 14. Her serve never stopped being dangerous, not for a single set. But alongside that firepower came a heavy pile of unforced errors. And that contrast tells you exactly what Alex's strategy actually was. She never tried to outpower an Olympic champion. She didn't need to match Zheng's biggest weapons with weapons of her own. She needed to survive long enough that the pressure of producing those weapons, point after point, eventually became too heavy for Zheng to carry alone. Against raw power, trying to win a shootout is often a trap. Alex refused the trap. She kept feeding the point back, over and over, and let her opponent's own aggression become the thing that eventually broke her. If you ask which single moment actually decided this match, it isn't match point. It isn't even the 4-love lead in the third set. It's that one game at 4-3 in the second. The game where Zheng broke Alex at love and had every reason to believe the match was already hers. That's the moment where belief could have simply ended. Instead, Alex answered with the exact same weapon that had just been used against her. That's the hinge. That's the second the entire trajectory of the night reversed. Everything after that point was simply the consequence playing itself out. And here is why this matters far beyond one first-round scoreline in Washington. Everyone already knew Alex could play beautiful tennis on a good day. She's shown flashes of brilliance before. What nobody had fully seen, what tonight actually proved, is what happens when nothing is going her way. When the set is gone, when the break is gone, when an Olympic champion is one game away from putting the match out of reach entirely. That's the version of a competitor that separates a player who occasionally produces a great night from a player who becomes genuinely dangerous over an entire career. Because if you can only beat elite opponents when everything falls perfectly into place, you're only a threat on your best days. But if you can lose the first set, absorb a demoralizing break, and still find a way to completely reverse the match, now every future opponent has to prepare for two different versions of you. The one who starts well, and the one who comes back from disaster. Tonight, Zheng ran into the second version, and she had no answer for it. Picture the stadium in that final game, Filipino flags rising with every point. A crowd that had arrived hoping simply to witness their favorite player compete, now watching her complete one of the more dramatic reversals anyone in that arena had seen in years. When a player falls behind like that, a home crowd can go one of two ways. It can become suffocating pressure, or it can become fuel. Tonight, it became fuel, and you could feel it building with every single game Alex clawed back. The celebration that followed wasn't just about winning a first-round match. It was about surviving something that 20 minutes earlier looked unsurvivable. Alex didn't simply beat Qinwen Zheng tonight. She beat the version of the match where she was already losing. But before you get too comfortable with this ending, there's a twist waiting just around the corner, and it changes everything about how we should be reading tonight's result. Alex's next opponent in Washington isn't some unfamiliar name looking to make a statement. It's Leylah Fernandez, the defending champion. And this isn't a coincidence-free storyline either. Fernandez carries Filipino roots of her own, which means the crowd's emotional investment in this tournament isn't going anywhere. But here's the part that should make you sit up. Fernandez has already beaten Alex this year, in straight sets back in Stuttgart. So this isn't two strangers meeting for the first time. This is a rematch with history already sitting on the court before either player hits a ball. Alex knows Fernandez can hurt her. Fernandez knows exactly what Alex is capable of. But something is different this time, and it isn't about technique or strategy. It's about what Alex now carries with her that she didn't have walking into Washington the first time. Real, lived proof that she can fall behind against an elite opponent, down a set, down a break, staring at what looked like an early exit, and still find her way all the way back. That kind of evidence doesn't fade after one match. It becomes part of how a player thinks under pressure for the rest of her career. So here's the real question worth sitting with as this story closes. What if the most valuable thing Alex walked away with tonight wasn't the win itself? What if it was the knowledge, now proven and undeniable, that she can survive this exact kind of pressure? Not a hope, not potential, not someone else's prediction about what she might become one day. Actual lived evidence. She was down a set. She was down a break. She was facing an Olympic champion in front of a crowd that had shown up specifically to watch her succeed. And she still turned it around. The next time a set slips away from her against a dangerous opponent, she has Washington to remember. The next time she's broken at the worst possible moment, she has that exact 4-3 game in the second set to draw on. The next time a match feels like it's disappearing in real time, she has 7 consecutive games of proof that disappearing feelings don't always mean a disappearing match. That is how belief compounds in professional sport. Not through affirmations, through nights exactly like this one. Let's rewind one more time, all the way back to the beginning, because now you can see the whole shape of it. A debut everyone had been anticipating for weeks. A crowd that showed up specifically for one name. An opponent with an Olympic gold medal and a serve built to end matches early. A first set slipping away. A break at love that should have ended the story right there. And then, quietly, without fanfare, a decision to simply stay for every ball. A break back at love that flipped the entire psychological weight of the match. 7 straight games that turned a looming disaster into a statement. A brief final flicker of resistance, answered immediately. And a final score that tells you Alex won, but completely undersells how close this came to being remembered as something else entirely. Because the real story isn't that Alex beat an Olympic champion in Washington. The real story is that an Olympic champion had her exactly where she wanted her. A setup, a breakup, one hold away from control, and Alex still found a way out. Now Leylah Fernandez is waiting, carrying her own history against Alex into the next round. And if tonight's belief travels with her onto that court, Washington may have just shown us the opening chapter of something far bigger than one comeback. If this story pulled you in, stay close, because Sherry Diaries isn't done following where this goes next.